Hi there, everyone. This is Mike from Incrementa Unconsulting. At the leadership table today, we're talking about the strategic aspects of cybersecurity and risk. My guest today is the brilliant strategist, Dominic Vogel. I should also say that I have so much fun talking with Dom. He's hilarious and he gets great laughs out. So this is the perfect person to talk about a heavy topic like cybersecurity with. Dom, welcome.
That was one of the nicest intros, Mike. Thank you so much.
No problem. I wanted to start somewhere very specific. Like you, I spent a lot of my life in the cyber industry. And one of the things I absolutely hated about it is the fear mongering. You know, it detracts so much from the strategic aspect, and it makes it feel like the entire cyber industry is filled with used car salespeople. But cybersecurity is one of the biggest risks for businesses, and it has to be treated appropriately. So what do business leaders need to know, and where do they get started?
That's a great question. To me, I think the first piece is that business owners need to come to grips with that cyber risk is business risk. It's not something that is dealt with by IT or something that you can just wrap with insurance. It's a risk that you need to optimize and to understand what it means to your organization. And starting off, that means an acceptance of knowing that your organization at some point will experience a significant data breach, a significant security incident. It's not something which just happens to big companies, right? It will happen to you. It's just a matter of fact, a matter of life now. And that's the first piece there, is coming to grips with that. This is a real risk. You need to treat it just like you do operational, financial, environmental, personnel risk. It's part of your risk portfolio and needs to be treated as such.
So I love the key element you said in there, that business owners need to just assume that they will be breached, that they're either going to have a data breach or they're going to have probably a security disaster, ransomware, something like that. If that's the case, how do they start being a little bit proactive in their risk management?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to me, it starts with understanding what your current cybersecurity environment looks like. Whether you have those capabilities inside, whether you need to leverage a trusted third party. I always like to say you can't secure what you don't know. And really, it's about understanding at this current point in time, what elements of cybersecurity are you doing well? What elements are you not doing so well in? What elements are you really sucking at? And then going through a prioritization. Because at the end of the day, you can't do all things cybersecurity, nor should you. But again, when it comes to doing this from a risk management perspective, it's all about prioritization. Understanding where are those key risks as they pertain to cyber or data risk, and what items there, if you were to address them or remediate them, would provide you with a significant risk reduction. That's where you should focus on. It's not about going to a security vendor and saying, hey, I'll buy the fanciest security piece of equipment you have on the lot. That's, so again, like the used car salesman. It's about doing this through a risk management process.
Awesome. Now, most mid-size and larger businesses have an enterprise risk management structure they're already working through, which is fantastic. Smaller businesses, not so much. But how do you start to separate out, or do you separate out your cyber and your technology risk from your business risk to make it so it's a little bit more manageable?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the thing I always like to say is that the whole notion about cybersecurity is that it's very much a journey. Unlike some elements of risk where maybe you just need to upgrade to a new system, or especially with IT risk, a lot of IT risk comes down to legacy systems and upgrading those or updating them. Cybersecurity is something which is ongoing. It's a journey. It's not just a point in time. And when we're talking again about separating out those risks, the technology risk isn't necessarily something which is affecting the data of your organization, or the data integrity, or the confidentiality of said data. It may be more around, like I said, maybe the availability of those systems, the usefulness of those systems. So not necessarily super things which are related to cybersecurity. To me, cybersecurity, when you take that out, is really focusing on your crown jewels. What are the most critical data assets in your organization, whether those be personal information, which may not be necessarily critical, but if you lost them or they were breached, you get a big fine. But then the confidential elements, what is that core data that your business thrives on? How does it thrive with that data. Knowing where that data is, where it exists, and being able to protect that, that is how you, in my mind, how you take out that risk and focus specifically on that.
Love that. And one of the things that I often did when I was doing the cyber risk side of things was that I'd have my own separate risk register, which may have 400 items in it for the IT team to manage. And then we would bubble up the ones that were the most critical into the enterprise, into the company's risk register, so that the most important parts of cyber were always discussed at the leadership table. And the details, you're on a previous revision of your firewall and need to worry about upgrading that. The leadership team doesn't really care. The details for the technical people, but the big critical risks are for the business. Does that work and make sense in your mind?
Absolutely, and again, that's the whole. And I love that example, Mike, in which there are the technical details that the business leadership or the C-suite doesn't need to know about. They don't need to know about the firewall. They don't need to know all that tech talk. There's certain operational elements of cybersecurity, which to me focuses more on the technology side or the IT side. Then there's the bigger picture stuff that absolutely needs the eyes and ears of the board, the C-suite, the CEO, what have you, because they'll have a broader impact on the business. The in and outs of the firewall, that's very operational. It's not strategic.
Oh, and that's perfect transition. Thank you. You just lead me right to my next question, Dom. You're making this easy. So you start talking about those bigger strategic impacts and the things that the board and the leadership team really need to know about. What are some of those bigger impacts and bigger risks that that they're dealing with? Because it's not just a matter of getting ransomware or potential downtime or a virus sneaking in. What could go wrong?
Well, and that's really interesting. To me, there's a couple things. One of the things which I have found coming quite quickly, especially with small, mid-sized businesses, is the fact that a lot of these organizations need to start filling out what's called security questionnaires. So sort of stating, here's all the stuff we do from a cybersecurity program perspective. Here's proof of that. And that's so important right now because the larger organizations are clamping down on vendor risk management or supply chain risk. And up until recently, most small and mid-sized businesses have, for lack of a better term, have somewhat been lying on a lot of these questionnaires, saying that they have a cybersecurity program in place, saying that they have the policies and all that, when in fact they don't. And now we're at this point in time where these large organizations are calling bluffs. They're saying we need to actually see proof of that, or they're digging down. They're asking for maybe an on-site audit or on-site assessment. And a lot of small and mid-sized businesses are like, oh, crap, we've been lying all these years. We don't want to lose our big clients. That, to me, is now tying into strategic elements of why cybersecurity is important. In order to remain competitive, in order to retain your key contracts with your key clients or customers, you need to be able to demonstrate cybersecurity. And that's why it needs board-level recognition.
Once upon a time, I regularly called those questionnaires basically just putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
You answer it any way you want. Even if they ask for evidence, you can really bluff your way through it.
Exactly.
It's great to see that they're starting to become a little bit more real.
Yes.
So what you end up looking at is that if you're dealing with, especially with enterprise customers, your cybersecurity posture is very strategic to maintaining and getting those contracts. And I've seen that with, the SOC 2 standard is becoming more and more prevalent in that space, where customers are saying, we want a SOC 2, which is an audited standard to validate that you have the right cyber posture in place. So the risk there is either not getting or potentially losing some of those bigger, more mature customers.
Absolutely. And with many of these smaller mid-sized organizations, often they'll have one or two key significant contracts with big customers, and if they lose that, all of a sudden the foundation of their business falls right out. And again, this is back to the point you made at the very beginning, in which cybersecurity, as much as we talk about the external threats, cyber criminals, and all that, in this day and age right now, there's a very clear business reason. It's not external factors. It's not hackers in Russia or whatever. It's the fact that your customers, your clients see your organization as an extension of their risk profile. And as such, if your organization doesn't meet their risk tolerance, they will not hesitate. They'll cut that contract and will move somewhere else. So now we're in this age where cybersecurity is a competitive differentiator. And it's really interesting to be in that phase right now.
And that is so important for companies to start to understand. So my last question for you, there's one thing business leaders need to know and think about around cybersecurity. What is it?
It's the thing I would say that they need to know most is that cybersecurity isn't something that you should react to. It's something you need to be proactive about. Just like you wouldn't wait for your company to go into a financial downward spiral, you would plan out financially what your organization is going to look like. Cybersecurity is no different. To me, it's part and parcel of the strategic planning of your organization. Your company cannot grow, your company cannot expand, your company cannot succeed if you don't start thinking about cybersecurity now.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Dom. This has been great, and I love the fact that we've managed to keep it mostly succinct, so business leaders can grab it, one drop at a time.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well, good sir.